When vaccines do become available to the cohort of employees, it is absolutely open to employers to encourage their employees to take the vaccine. However, it is very difficult and very challenging at this point in time to mandate that employees do take the vaccine. The reasons for this are predominantly because under the Irish Constitution, citizens of Ireland have a right to the protection of their bodily integrity, and arguably mandating that employees receive a vaccine would be seen to be an infringement of that right. Further, there are employees who may oppose receiving the vaccine on grounds such as their religion, the fact that they have a medical condition and are concerned about the impact of the vaccine on that condition, or their pregnancy. These employees, these three categories of employees, are amongst 9 categories of persons who are protected from being discriminated against under the provisions of our employment equality legislation. And an employer who insists that these categories of employees receive the vaccine could be at risk of being seen to be indirectly discriminating against these employees. So how does an employer determine the extent to which his or her employees should take up the COVID-19 vaccine? Well, the starting point for all employers is the identification of hazards that they would have carried out in their workplace, generally or particularly within the context of COVID-19, and the risk assessment that they would have developed following that hazard identification exercise. Employers should review their risk assessment now, and presumably this will have been already reviewed previously in the context of COVID-19. And from the risk assessment, the employer should be able to determine whether or not all of their employees should be encouraged to take the vaccine, or whether there are employees in particular work areas who are at more risk if they don't take the vaccine than in other work areas. By way of example, an employer who runs a meat processing facility might find himself or herself in a position where, because of the close proximity of employees at work, they will be more justifiably able to adopt a position that receipt of the vaccine by their employees is necessary, as distinct from an employer who, for example, runs a construction activity where they can physically distance employees more easily. In that particular situation, that employer might find himself or herself in a situation where they can form a view that it's optimal that their employees take the vaccine, but not absolutely necessary. It's also important to bear in mind that under the Health and Safety Act, employees do have an obligation to cooperate with their employer, where the employer is taking steps to protect the health and safety of employees. And as such, employers can use the risk assessment and the obligation of employees to cooperate with their employer in maintaining a safe and healthy workplace to encourage employees to take the vaccine. The question then arises, what if an employee who the employer has adjudged as optimally taking the vaccine refuses to do so? Well, the first point to bear in mind is that an employer is expected to be reasonable with an employee and also to consult with employees to find out what their particular difficulties might be in relation to taking the vaccine, and to see if the employer can take any steps to assuage the employee's concerns. An employer should look to see if there are other forms of work that the employee can do where the employee wishes not to take the vaccine. An example might be, it could be possible for that employee to continue to work from home, or the employer could look at their workplace and determine, is there another area of work I can put this employee working in, or some other form of work that I can give the employee to do where the employee doesn't wish to take up the vaccine. Ultimately, it's very sensible for an employer to go through all of these steps with an employee before thinking about taking any disciplinary action for a breach of a health and safety duty. And as I mentioned previously, the importance of consulting with employees about their concerns about the vaccine and potential other forms of work cannot be overemphasized. In conclusion, employers do need to strike a balance between their obligation to have in place a workplace that is safe and that carries minimal risk for employees working in it, and also the ability or the willingness of their employees to take up the COVID-19 vaccine. It's a difficult balance to arrive at, but I do hope that some of the issues that I've raised in this vlog will help you in reaching a decision about how best to approach the issue of vaccination in your particular place of work. Thank you.